There's that saying about, dealing with life hands you, playing those cards and going for it. And I think our next two guests know all about that. And so do we, since we're doing round two of today's show, we're starting over. So you don't quit when things get tough. And really, doing a radio show is no tough business. Having hemophilia and deciding to climb the seven summits around the world, like Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro, now that is really going for it. And today we're very excited to have Chris-Bombardier join us, as well as film director Patrick-James-Lynch, who also has hemophilia. The two of them put together this amazing documentary following Chris as he climbed Mount Everest, and that was his seventh summit. And they're raising awareness on hemophilia. This whole documentary comes out August 18th and will be available digitally everywhere. But it was also is a fundraiser for Save One Life, and Chris is the executive director of that organization, so you can talk about that too. But they're doing an amazing job on creating awareness. But I really believe, on top of that, we're going to learn about hemophilia. We're going to learn about climbing mountains, filmmaking, but about never giving up in life and really doing what you want to do and not taking what life may give you a no for an answer to really achieve your dreams. So welcome, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I should say welcome back, right?
Yeah.
Welcome back, Cotter. But yeah, tell us a little bit. Let's bring Patrick on too. Patrick, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. It's Friday. We're talking outdoors and bombardier blood, and we're having a lot of fun while we're doing it. So I'm doing great.
Okay, good. Because you know what? At least it's not Friday the 13th, right? Then we'd have problems. Those would be the important, the crazy problems. But listen, really good to have you on the show, and thank you also for your patience as we iron all these issues out. But Chris, take us back to the beginning of, your mom and your parents. Here it is, hemophilia. Is that something your family knew could happen when you were born? You were saying earlier it is a genetic, I don't like saying the word disease, or it's a genetic issue. How about that?
Yeah, it's a genetic disorder. So, my family did know about hemophilia in our family before I was born. So my mom actually had two uncles with hemophilia who unfortunately passed away before I was born. But she just knew that if she had sons, that she was supposed to ask the doctor to test me and see if I had hemophilia. And I have an older brother who was tested as well. He does not have hemophilia, and I was the lucky one to get hemophilia, I guess. So we found out when I was born that I had hemophilia.
So she knows that you have that, and then that has got to be kind of fearful about being, like I was saying earlier, you want to be the boy in the bubble at that point. It's like, don't touch this, don't move, you know what I mean? So that part of that journey, what was that like growing up?
Yeah, I did talk to my mom a little bit about, in the documentary, that we kind of talked to her about like what it was like to have that diagnosis. And, as I mentioned, she didn't really know what it meant to have hemophilia. So when we actually got my diagnosis, she was pretty scared, and so was my dad, about what that meant and what that looked like. But luckily, I grew up in Colorado with this with a hemophilia treatment center, which is where I went for all my care. That is just really amazing and positive, and really helped encourage people with hemophilia to live as normal life as possible. So despite that diagnosis, they encouraged me to be active. They gently steered me away from certain sports like football and, something that you're going to hit your, have a lot of heavy contact. But they encouraged me to play other sports like baseball, which I fell in love with, and played all the way through college, which was cool. But yeah, those first years, I'm sure, were pretty stressful and scary for my mom, for sure, and dad, and just a lot of nerve-wracking. Yeah. But
then you started climbing mountains.
Yeah. Then I took a different approach, I guess.
I'm going up.
Right. Yeah. It was funny. Just after college, baseball was my obsession, and I just loved being active. And when baseball stopped, I was just searching for another way to be active, and I found it in the outdoors with my Uncle Dave, who lived up in Keystone and in the mountains of Colorado, and he was really great. He didn't say I couldn't do it because I had hemophilia. He said, just make sure you take care of yourself and let me know if there's any issues. But he just opened up this world of the mountains to me, and it was just really great. He was always so willing to share what he knew and all his knowledge with me, and I just fell in love with being outside. And it's just an amazing world out there to see from climbing up.
Yeah. And then to say I'm going to go, all the way to up Mount Everest and Mount Kilimanjaro, which I really miss seeing that mountain.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Because you really showed not only the mountain climbing part of this, you showed what people are dealing with around the world and communities are dealing with in regards to hemophilia. So I know you've already explained this part, but can you let everyone know what hemophilia is and why people do have to be careful?
Yeah. So hemophilia, like I said, is a genetic condition. So essentially, we have a mutation, genetic mutation that leads to our bodies not producing a protein that helps your blood clot. And a lot of times when people hear hemophilia, they think like if you're going to get a paper cut, you're gonna die from a paper cut, and it's not really paper cuts that you got to worry about. It's more internal bleeding, like into joint spaces or internal and into muscles. So repeated bleeding into especially joint spaces leads to like long-term damage and deformities and disabilities. But fortunately in the U.S. we have pretty good access to medication. So a lot of people in the U.S., when you look at them, you don't even see that they have hemophilia. Not that they haven't undergone a lot of struggles, but you can't see the visual differences. But in most developing countries, they don't have access to care. So, 50% of people actually pass away before the age of 10 in a lot of these countries. Most of them will never actually know what they passed away from. They won't have that diagnostic or diagnosis, so they won't even know what's happening to them. So, diagnosis is a big issue in a lot of these countries, and then there's very little access to medicine in most of these countries too, in developing countries.
So do you feel anything wrong, when you're saying like these people that have it but can't get diagnosed, they don't know they have it, but do they have pain?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll definitely have pain, and they'll have bleeding into joints. So it'll lead to really big and deformed joints. So they'll be in tons and tons of pain. It's more artifact of they don't have the facilities in these countries to get diagnosed, or they live very far from any hospital that they might be able to get diagnosed from. So it's just it's a matter of just like where they live that they won't know. But they'll be unfortunately, it's a very, very painful condition to have, especially untreated. So yeah, it's rough to see. So I've gotten to travel to a lot of countries where hemophilia treatment's not great, and it's tough to see how much pain they're enduring and the struggles they're enduring, unfortunately.
I know when we lived in Kenya that several, like over 30 years ago, I think, or even more maybe. I just don't know. I don't want to say either. No, the Catholic nuns had sort of hospitals and schools, and you would have your government hospital, and people they'd end up in either one, the government hospital or a Catholic hospital. And I'm trying to think, but I don't know that they could even diagnose that when we were in Kenya. I don't believe they even would know how to even. Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah,
probably not. We actually, in 2011, which is kind of how I got into climbing Kilimanjaro, actually, we went on a trip to help establish a diagnostic lab in Kenya to help diagnose people with the condition. And
cool.
It was interesting. The first year we were there in 2011, we did some educational symposiums, and the doctors just didn't know that hemophilia was present there. They had so many things that they were thinking about that hemophilia wasn't something that really crossed their mind. And that was actually, that trip is what really inspired me to do more of this global work with hemophilia, because we met a boy there who was like 14, and he was in the hospital, and he had come in but with abdominal pain, and the doctors removed his appendix, not knowing that he had hemophilia. And, he eventually had, a lot of bleeding, and luckily we showed up right when he was in the hospital, and we guessed at what kind of hemophilia he had and guessed what medicine to give him, and it ended up being correct, and he ended up, surviving and leaving the hospital. But it was just a really eye-opening experience for me of what hemophilia looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, in some of the remote places like that we've gone, Karen and I talk about witch doctors.
Yeah,
that's what the families go for first. And that's interesting to watch. I mean, I've seen some of those ceremonies, and it just blows your mind. In the meantime, you have a sick person that really needs help, like right now, and what they're doing, what they feel is the biggest and best thing to do, and it just is like, whoa, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of our partners with Save One Life in Africa, try and work with the local, practitioners and traditional practitioners, and talk to them and explain what hemophilia is, to just be on the lookout for it, and not to tell them not to go to the traditional healing pathway, but if they see that, to also go to the hospital. So for the medicine. So yeah, absolutely, that's an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Patrick, I wanted to touch base with you because you also have hemophilia, and so that's to me is amazing. This partnership between the two of you, both having that and working together on this film. For you, what was your journey like and growing up with it?
Yeah, growing up with hemophilia, I had actually a fair number of complications. So about 30%, so to Chris's point about how well cared for people like him and I are in the United States as compared to developing countries worldwide, for about 30% of people with severe hemophilia in the United States, they develop an immune response that renders the ideal medication ineffective. So without getting too into the weeds, it makes the quality of life and overall burden of hemophilia much greater when someone has one of these what we call inhibitors. And I had one for about 7 years. So I experienced a lot of bleeding episodes in particular in those 7 years. So I have pretty compromised ankles and knees, one elbow that I have to kind of manage with a bit of a close eye. So it was certainly a struggle for me. And then around 14, I got on the other side of that period, and I was able to what we call tolerize my inhibitor, so I could take this standard of care medicine. And my life for the 20 plus years since then has been much, much, much better from a hemophilia point of view than it was prior to that. But I have to say that when Chris, I would love as the director to take credit for a lot of the concept here, but I have to tell you that it was Chris's brainchild, and he came to me as he was a mountaineer with hemophilia. I was a filmmaker with hemophilia. It's a small world. There's only so many of us. So he shot me a message before a big annual conference and said, could we sit down, have lunch, and actually meet each other and talk about something? And he laid out this vision that he had for a film that would capture, in particular, the climb of Everest. And he said, I'm climbing all 7. I've done 5. There's only so much attention, though, that I seem to be able to get and support that I seem to be able to get. But Everest is coming up, and people know Everest. And in Nepal, where Everest is located, people with hemophilia are very lucky to see past 10 years old. So Everest might be the opportunity for us to share this incredible moment where the first person with hemophilia is going to try to get to the top of it, while at the same time profiling what the state of care actually looks like worldwide and what hemophilia can limit if you don't have access to sustainable and predictable care. And I just thought, as a filmmaker, as an advocate, as someone who loves a good challenge, and as someone who could never be as physically active as Chris was. Everybody with hemophilia has a slightly different lived experience, and I was not able to participate in sports and athletics and physical activity in the same way that Chris has. And in some ways, I've gotten to live through this because of him. He's given me, and not just me because I'm the director, but he's really done this for the entire global bleeding disorders community. He invited us into that journey so that we could experience this moment in time. It's never been done before, and it happened, and we were all a part of it. And there's something deeply satisfying about that, because it helps bring a little bit of resolution to that part of my life that will never be fully realized, but I'm able to have this heightened experience because of what Chris has done and the energy that he brought to it.
I think it's epic. Honestly, it's like, there's the incredible journey with, but then there's the epic journey, and this is epic. I mean, when I just Chris, your name Bombardier, you should have like a cape. Here he comes, the blood bombardier. Like, I'm serious. It's like a little superhero thing, because, doing that whole thing, and like, I know Nancy was talking about the needle. So that's kind of like what a lot of diabetics go through, with having to learn to inject and putting your medicine in, and in such cold conditions. So there's not that much medicine out there for this, and so that's, isn't it scary? Like, weren't you scared? I was scared for you.
There was moments that were nerve-wracking, but I wouldn't say I was super scared. I think I prepared and trained as well as I could, and was in, did the most planning that I could, and so I felt very confident in that plan and my training. And obviously there's those things that you can't control on a mountain, especially like Everest, that you think about all the time, but you can't, you try not to think about those things you can't control and just focus on those things you can. And, getting my medicine on board and making sure I had that plan in place. I always felt pretty confident in my ability and my skills, and not overly confident, but, I felt confident that I was in a good place. So, there's definitely moments that were scary, like going over the ladders over the crevasse for the first time is like, it's a little freaky. But once you get used to it, it's okay. And you just really get in the moment, and you just try and focus, and but I never felt like afraid for my life or anything like that, or scared in that sense, which is good. And I think that's a lot to do with the preparation, and also being with a team and a guide in Mountain Professionals that was just really, I just feel like we did everything in the best way and the safest way possible in those situations. And so I always felt really good about where we were and what we were doing. So, not that I wasn't like nervous, but I'm not really scared though.
I don't know,
man. I've got a weird thing of heights, but I did going through, and I know you lived in Colorado, and mountaineered in Colorado. It's one of the best states to do it, but I was so scared of the heights and having to do these mountain passes and everything. But I learned that Bob Marley can get you through everything, and
nice.
Just listen to Bob Marley. He says everything's going to be all right, and I believed it. And I was like, okay, fear, you are not my friend. Out you go. Even though fear is good for things, But I was just it is. Fear is a good thing to have. We need to have it as part of our senses. But I was like, you know what? You're going to do this. I'm going to listen to Bob. Bob Dylan's allowed too. But that's how I got through it, is that one drive at a time, one breath at a time, a lot of white knuckling, sweaty. But I did complete, I think, all of the really, really crazy mountain passes, and it feels really invigorating to do so. It feels good overcoming those things, and because it's true, when you're up there, it is mind-blowing with the views. When you're up at the top of some, as close as we can come to being a bird, other than maybe flying one of those would you jump
hang
off?
Gliding.
Well, no, those people that do the suits that fly off mountains, would you do that, Chris?
There's a time in my life that I was like, I wanted to get into that, but luckily for me, I had no money at that point, so I didn't get into that, and now, probably not now.
Because they really do crash land. I mean...
Sometimes.
They're like, no way. But the floating out there, that would be pretty cool. I'd like to do that. But I don't know. My deal is to see how close I can get to a wild animal.
Oh, good. I know, and get charged. Patrick, through this, looking at some of the work you've done, and I want to give also a big shout out to Alex Borstein, who's the executive producer on this, and look at her, man. She did a lot of the writing for Shameless, one of our favorite shows. So
I love that show.
Yeah, Emmy Award winning and nominations, and really awesome. So you worked, and Ryan Gielen, am I pronouncing that correctly, Patrick? I'm good at doing
You are.
Wrong.
No, most people don't get Gielen on the first attempt, but you did. Ryan Gielen, well done.
Cool. Okay, cool, because you never know, man. But so have you worked with him before?
Yeah, so Ryan is actually, interesting story. My company, Believe Limited, produced Bombardier Blood, and we're a film production company and a content agency that's been around for about 8 years, and it was founded by Ryan and I. Our very first project together was a web series called Stop the Bleeding, also exists in the bleeding disorders world, and the building of that project together, the finding the support and the partners for it, the executing of it, the bringing in all of the right people, et cetera. It was such a great experience for us that we thought, let's see what else we can kind of create along these lines, and it's been a steady climb for us ever since. So we're now a robust film production company and content agency. Cool. We've got 14 full-time employees and a whole slew of freelancers that we bring in per project as needed, and they all have something to do with entertainment that's affecting change and impacting people's lives for explicit intent.
I love
awesome.
it. I love it.
Like what you've done with this documentary, to me, it goes way beyond one specific disease. It goes way beyond that. I just feel like it's inspiring to people who have maybe have different problems, not exactly the same problem,
challenges,
or no problem. Yeah, it's especially in this time right now where people seem to be a little bit depressed about things. It's kind of like, oh, come on.
I think we need this now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like somebody else always has it worse. That's my parents used to say that to me. Somebody else always has it worse. I'm like, I find that even more depressing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, that's not helping. But just the idea of you can fix things, you can go past problems, and that's what I like the most about this whole thing is that the disease got small and the inspirational aspect got large.
But it goes beyond inspiration because you actually did it. Like you put the action, within the dream and the focus, and that to me is the important part. Is that the action goes with the dream. And you do take those steps to do it. And sometimes it takes a lifetime to do something like Mount Everest, right? It does. Yeah. But guys, I want to really thank you both for joining us and putting up with our technical drama. But I wanted to touch base before you go, because we have a special song for you. It's just it's called The Climb, because, it's cool that we're going to play. But, I'm twirling things around here. But Save One Life. It's an international hemophilia nonprofit, and so this is, I think, another really great thing that's happening with the documentary. Everybody, again, go get it August 18th. You can pre-order, right? So you guys want to be on the front page of iTunes, I believe. So
we certainly do, and I get to tell you something real exciting. As of right now, we're the #1 documentary to pre-order on iTunes, and we want to stay there. So if you're inclined to pre-order it on iTunes and keep us up there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's this is a positive thing we can do, and especially all these digital downloads and everything. It's cost effective. Everyone that's staying at home, and you're feeling like closed in, watch this. You will not feel closed in. You'll feel empowered. And and I think every young child should watch this to understand the power of moving forward. Go ahead.
And I'm inclined to mention it's family friendly. It's a family film as well. It's Dove approved, which for certain people and certain audiences is consequential. And while we never built it to be, a a quote-unquote family film. That is just what it is. So I think that's important to mention, because sometimes people hear mountain climbing and Everest, they don't necessarily think a family story, but it really is. So while we're all in our homes and kind of trapped, this is something that everybody in the household can benefit from, in my extraordinarily biased opinion.
Awesome. I agree with you.
No, I think no, and that again just shows the power of, it's a good life lesson, and it's a real story, which I think that's the power of documentaries too. Patrick, you got to love that, right? That it's real.
I do.
It's a real.
Yep.
I think documentaries are one of the reasons of shift, of positive shift. It may not seem like we have positive shifts in the country, but I think we do have a lot of positive shift, and I think documentaries have taught us what foods to eat, what to watch out for. They've been our school teacher, in our homes, but not just pointing at it. And I love school teachers in school, but it's something you can visually see. And so, Patrick, your work, to me, I bow down. I can only do the best we do is running around and photographing parks, but your work is absolutely incredible. And I love that 20% of the proceeds from the documentary Bombardier Blood goes to your nonprofit that you're the executive director for, Chris. It goes over to Save One Life, right? So that is important.
Yeah.
What's the
really
website
cool
for your nonprofit for everybody to know?
It is www.saveonelife.net. And all of my climbs were kind of in, trying to bring awareness to Save One Life in our work, and it's really cool to now get to actually do the physical work, of the nonprofit now, which is really cool.
It is really cool. What you guys are doing is amazing. Thank you both for joining us. Everyone, again, go pre-order. Go get it. It's out everywhere on August 18th. Go to bombardier-blood.com, and I'm spell that because I like to, mess up everything. It's bombardier blood.com. So go get it. And here's the song. This is from a young Native American flute player, Evren Ozan.
Cool.
He picked up a flute when he was 9 years old at the Grand Canyon. He ended up being Grammy nominated, NAMI winner for the Native American Music Awards multiple times, featured in National Geographic. This is off of his album Alluvia, which he wrote the music for. He's got 3 albums out, and now he is a high-speed downhill skateboarder. So I figured you're going up, he likes to go down, but he's also a pilot. We knew him when he was a kid. Now he's a young man going out there, and he also teaches powwows and Native American history in schools. He's an amazing individual. But this is from his album Alluvia. Yeah, right? It's cool. He's a proper
There's a film. I'm just going to put it out there. There's a film wanting to be done.
I know. He's awesome. Here's the song we wanted to play for you. It's called The Climb. So take a listen, and then we're going to Central California, to San Benito County. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Guys.
I appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you.